We're on the property tax end of this, the wildlife management side, and basically our company has been in business for over 17 years now, and we help people make the transition. At least the backbone of our company is we help people make the transition from traditional ag to wildlife. So to give you an example of folks who might do it, a family like mine who had livestock all our lives, and things change and we decide we don't want to be in livestock anymore, but we can't lose that ag valuation, the lower property tax valuation. We can't lose that or we're going to lose the ranch. Or it was designed to help ranchers, the families that own the large tracts of land that for whatever reason can't be in agricultural production anymore. It's either bleeding them dry or the property is just not working now. It's just not working out for them anymore, to keep them from having to subdivide that property in order to hang on to any of it. So wildlife management came about for that purpose. But our company's been in business, well over 15 years. The founders helped establish the wildlife management valuation law. So I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about us so you know why I'm up here doing this. They helped establish the valuation law, had a lot to do with actually getting that law passed. What that really means is that we understand it, and we're one of the only companies that's dedicated to that purpose. Central Texas based. We have a staff of wildlife biologists. That is really what our company is all about. We have a staff of guys who are the core of our company that do the consulting for landowners, and then you have guys like me that my guys are kind of like my bird dogs and my kids. They make me look like I know what I'm doing. I get to come out here and talk to you all about it and spread the word and try to help people understand it. The biologists do the work and the people in the office make sure that it happens and happens correctly. We've helped over 2,500 landowners make that transition. We're probably getting close to 3,000 now. This past year, we did 350 wildlife management plans this past year. 230 of those were brand new wildlife management clients, people going from traditional ag to wildlife management. No longer managing and going through the livestock, but managing for wildlife. And we're here, the company, Plateau, we have the ability to help in all different realms of it. There's some books here that have some information about us. We also have a law firm that's a sister company of ours, Braun and Gresham, that from a landowner standpoint and anyone else in the industry that needs that help, we do a lot with accountants, with attorneys, a lot of realtors and brokers and things that we work with who deal with landowners on a daily basis who have questions about this, and I like to think that we're just another tool in people's toolbox to try to help them get the right answers. We do have all the products and services and everything. If someone were to make the transition to wildlife, where we kind of stand apart is somebody makes that transition and goes from being traditional ag and moving into wildlife, we can help them through every part of it. We have technicians that will do the work for them. We have all the products and services and things that they might need to maintain it, and all the consulting that might be needed. So, why people choose wildlife management? A lot of different reasons, and there's hundreds of reasons, and I get them every day, but a lot of times it's just they're tired of traditional ag. Either they can't handle it anymore, a change of lifestyle. Growing up, we didn't leave town much because we had livestock on the farm, and like to remind people that those livestock, it's different than having wildlife on your property. The wildlife can fend for themselves for the most part. If something happens and my water runs dry, the deer will go somewhere else and find water. I'm not responsible for them necessarily. If my water runs dry and the cows die, I'm going to feel pretty bad about that. And that's one of the reasons we moved out of it. No more grass, no more water. It's kind of hard to keep cows alive. It takes a little more than you want to put into it. They might want to improve the property, improve the value of the property, improve the look of the property. I was just commenting today, a landowner, I do a lot of work in Gillespie County on a nice ranch out there, and when I didn't think about this, it dawned on me, but we saw turkey there for the first time last year. And about 8 years ago, when I was on this property with the landowner, he mentioned that they see turkey out by the river all the time, and he was wondering why they're not on your property. I said, well, because there's nothing here that they want. It's full of cows, there's no cover, there's nothing, and short of moving the river over here, it's just not going to happen. Well, in the last 2 years, we pulled the cows off the back 600 acres, and I do a lot of quail hunts back there, and I convinced him to take the cows off and convinced him that the property we would generate more income, more revenue off hunting if it looked nice and if it was just a beautiful place to hunt. We were running out of habitat. Well, the habitat regrew, things came back in the last couple of years, and lo and behold, there's turkey back there now. And it dawned on me the other day, like, look, that's kind of what I preach to people, and it actually worked. And I wasn't thinking about him because he's not in wildlife management. He's not one of our clients. It's just a place where I do a lot of quail hunts, and I got him to do what I wanted him to through that message. But resale value, limits of liability. If you think about it, if you're in ag and you have livestock on your property, there are liabilities. Our place out in Garfield, the fence gets run through every once in a while. And when I was younger, the first words out of my dad's mouth would have been, "Where are my cows?" They were right there on 71. So that's a liability that people don't think about sometimes beyond just the cost. Possibly less effort, and it's enjoyable. It gives you some more freedom, and it's meant to be enjoyable. What wildlife management basically is just an alternative agricultural use. It's basically like telling the county, I'm going to run goats instead of cows. You're telling the county that you're going to manage for native Texas wildlife instead of managing the livestock that you're currently managing, or instead of crop farming or breeding horses or whatever it may be. It's just an alternative agricultural use. The property has to currently be in ag, so the people that qualify are your landowners who have a property that's currently in ag, and they're just interested in doing something different. They don't want to deal with the livestock anymore, or for whatever reason they need to move into ag. Or you have a new landowner. There's landowners that come in that buy a property and maybe the fences are going down. They don't want to worry about rebuilding the fences. They don't want to worry about going into ag production. The tax valuation, the property tax valuation is the same as ag. Nothing changes there. And you're allowed to manage the property for native Texas wildlife. It's an activity-based program. You don't have to be good at it. You don't have to produce more wildlife. You don't have to make money doing it. You don't have to, if you're managing for songbirds or not, nobody's going to come out and check and make sure you have more songbirds. They are going to check and make sure you're doing certain activities that I'll talk about in a second. But there's 7 activity categories. You're required to do about 3 things a year. That's the requirement, is a minimum of 3 activities. We always recommend, as a company, we recommend people do more than the minimum 3. That you try to do 4, 5, 6, as many as you want to, as many as you can, reasonably, to where you're not overburdening yourself. We always try to make sure that you're well beyond. Just like, a landowner, what we've been talking about is dealing with the IRS. We deal with the county, with the appraisal districts, and maintaining that ag valuation. And you need to make sure you have good records. You need to make sure you're going above and beyond and going above the minimum. I have a landowner here in Bexar County who is probably one of the most valuable 10 or 15 acre pieces of property in Bexar County, and he could get away with putting 3 birdhouses out on his property as a supplemental shelter activity. It'd be crazy to put 3 birdhouses on that property and maintain an ag valuation by doing the very minimum. So he goes well beyond, spends quite a bit of money on his wildlife management, so he's putting up a good front, and he's actually showing that he's doing something substantial. And you'll find in a minute that a lot of the activities that are involved are things you're already doing if you're a landowner there, and if you're taking good care of the property, if you're hunting on the property, if you're running livestock, you're doing a lot of these things already. You're required to manage for native Texas wildlife, indigenous wildlife. I put this up here just because most people think of, and I get the question a lot, well, do I have to manage for white-tailed deer? It's not a deer program, and you don't have to manage for white-tailed deer. There's any number of different animals you can manage for. I have a lady in Fredericksburg, right outside of Fredericksburg, has 3 acres. She manages for songbirds and butterflies and maintains her ag valuation that way. It was a neat little property. She had 3 cows on it before we got to her, and it looked like this floor. It looked like a parking lot. It just had nothing on it. It was kind of a blank canvas. We were able to reseed the whole thing. It's a beautiful little property now. She has some plants that she's put in for butterflies and songbirds, and it's kind of fun. But you get to decide what you want to manage for. What's involved, the requirements. These are the 7 activity categories, and they're pretty simple, pretty basic. And it's things, habitat control might be cedar clearing or brush management of some kind. Managing prickly pear, killing prickly pear, cedar, mesquite control. We're doing a lot of mesquite control in our place in Garfield right now, so that's on my mind. Erosion control, people who have a piece of property that has any kind of water runoff problems, there's all kinds of erosion control activities that you can do, whether it's stacking brush and culverts or stacking rocks and stream beds and things like that to slow erosion. Predator control, if you're someone, if they have a property and you're hunting on the property, our landowners, we moved from ag to wildlife in the last year or 2, and the people who were renting the property from me happened to have killed a few hogs on the property, and that was a good predator control activity for me, and I was able to show that. Again, kind of harping back to what we were talking about, documentation and keeping records. When you do these things on a property, you make sure that you're keeping records of what you did, showing some pictures to the county, because they can ask you at the end of the year, what did you do? Just like being audited, they'll ask you for an annual report that says, what did you do? What were the activities you did this year? So a landowner needs to know and needs to keep a record, keep a book of what they did. So at the end of the year, they can put it all together. Supplemental food may just be as simple as putting out a feeder. It could be putting in food plots. It was back to, planting seeds. If you were looking for something that you could do that maybe, it was the sales tax exempt. If you're planting, the right kind of native grasses, planting seeds for wildlife, that kind of thing. Supplemental water this time of year, right now, water is such a big issue. And anytime you can put water on your property, you're going to get more wildlife. Supplemental shelter and census counts. There's these 7 activity categories. Shelter may be as simple as birdhouses, could be building brush piles. Census counts could be your own activities going out to your ranch and keeping track of what you saw on the property for the year. Every time you're out there, maybe going to, or maybe 3 times, 4 times a year, going to a certain piece of your property and keeping records of what walks by. Maybe putting cameras on feeders, that kind of thing, fun stuff like that, that can be enjoyable and can also be a wildlife management activity that you get to show the county what you did. And all this maintains your ag valuation. By doing those activities, you're given the same property tax valuation as someone who's running livestock or someone who's in traditional farming. And it's really it's a personal choice. And that's one of the reasons I like doing this, and one of the reasons Plateau does this, does these presentations, and we run around and talk to people about this, and we deal with the appraisal districts and try to help them understand it. That's a big part of our program, is the education, trying to make sure the appraisal districts understand it, because it's amazing that it's been around for over 15 years. It started in 1995 was when the law was passed. And there's still counties that have no idea exactly how it works. There's appraisal districts that I'll walk in Mason County and Kimball County, and you'll go in there and there's 4 people and you'll get 7 or 8 different answers. How many acres do I have to have? What do I have to do? And no one fully understands it. And when I hear these folks talk about these tax issues and deductions and sales tax exemptions and things like that, I understand there's even more complicated issues out there. But one thing I always stress, we're not anti-ag. We're not an anti-ag company. We're kind of more pro-wildlife, and I'm personally a little more pro-porch. I want to be able to spend a little time on my property. I want to, these are the things I like. This is why I did it. I wanted to be able to spend a little more time. I grew up with my dad, working cows, and that's what we did. But when the time came, there are other priorities and other fine uses of my time. This is the kind of things I enjoy doing when I'm on the ranch. I want to see this. I like to show off my bird dogs every once in a while. I want to see my property looking like that, not that. And ours looked real close to that for a long period of time. And so did that property just before this. 2 years ago, it didn't look anything like that. And just taking some pressure off of it when it's not necessary to be in. And this is just for people who don't necessarily want to be in traditional ag. I'm not saying that there's nothing wrong with ag. Trust me, I've done it. I want to do more of this when I'm on the ranch. And less of this. That picture right there reminds me so much of my dad. That's what we spent a lot of our time doing. And while it's still kind of fond of my heart, I just prefer he didn't have to do it either. But for me, the reasons keep going. This brings me joy. This not so much. So it's about how you want to use your property. And then I'll close this, just leave up here some frequently asked questions. These are some of the things that come up when we're talking to people about wildlife management. Of course, we'll open this up to questions, but there's the tax break's the same. Your taxes stay the same as they are now. So as far as if you're moving from ag to wildlife, there's no additional break. Part of your land can be in ag and part in wildlife. I have folks that want to keep cows. We still have cows on our place. You saw the picture of my daughter. We still have some livestock on our place, but we have it fenced off to where we can move them around, and that's actually part of our wildlife management activity. Those cows can be moved around strategically. They don't overgraze it like they used to. The place looks nice again, but we still have some cows. I still have a very productive coastal pasture that gets baled every year. The same guy's been baling it since I was a little kid. There's no reason to take that away from him, but I can keep part of the property in ag and part in wildlife, so you can do both. You can move back and forth. I have landowners here in San Antonio that just decided, hey, we want to be out of ag right now. We're not interested in it, but we might want to do it again in 10 years. We'll put it in wildlife, and then you can always transfer back. There's no, you'll hear a lot about minimum acreage. There's no real minimum acreage as long as the property's in ag. And that's, again, one of those things that you need to, if you're looking at moving a property into wildlife management and use, let's say it's a 10 acre or 15 acre property, something like that, anything below 20 acres, you probably want to have somebody help you with it, because you'll get if you call the county right now and ask them how many acres you have to have, they'll tell you 20, which is not necessarily true, because if it's in ag, it doesn't have to be a certain acreage. But anyway, there's the requirements to get started. There's things that people need to know. Why our company's here is that not enough people were able to do this, and that's why our founders started this company. It was kind of a complicated process. You're required to file applications. You have to have a wildlife management plan. It doesn't have to be done by a professional, but it helps. Whether it's us or somebody else, it helps the county know that you're doing, that you know what you're supposed to do, and it helps you know that you've got a good plan that's going to help you down the road to being successful, and you don't get into something that you don't really want to do. It all has to be done. The same tax filing deadline's April 30th. And Plateau, and there's other companies that are out there. Texas Parks and Wildlife. Texas Parks and Wildlife is available to people. They basically do what we do for free. But we're there for the landowners that need help. You know, that's come crunch time, that's where, you know, all throughout the year, someone who can't get the attention they might need from Texas Parks and Wildlife for whatever reason, they try to help everyone they can. But when they need help and they want personal attention, the average landowner with a couple hundred acres or 100 acres or whatever, 50 acres that needs that help, they can come to us for that. So that's my spiel. That's what I got. I appreciate y'all.